What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of The Franchise. So today we're doing something a little different. Saturday, this Saturday, so today, as of today, it's Thursday, April 22nd. Saturday, April 24th is the recognition of the Armenian Genocide. What year is it now, guys?
106.
106. 106th anniversary of the date that we choose to recognize the beginning or the epicenter of the Armenian Genocide. Obviously, it's an event that took place much longer than just one day. It didn't happen in one day. It didn't start on that day, but it's the date of remembrance. So
Actually, that day, Alan was telling me yesterday.
Yeah, on April 24th, 1915, the Ottoman government decided to round up
right, the
over
intellectuals.
200 Armenian intellectuals, clergy, important figures of the community, and they either killed them or sent them to either work camps or just imprisoned them.
Right. The men, the powerful men, basically, everything like that. That's where it really happened that day. That's why it's recognized. But this was something that was happening long before.
Oh, yeah.
Even, early or late 1800s, really, if you really search into it, that's where it really all started. And it didn't really end until, 1917, 1918. Realistically, it was like the end of World War I. So that's the subject that we're on today. No sports. And hope you guys can sit through this. We got some stories to tell. We got some different opinions, I'm sure, very sure. So I'll get started. I'm someone that has always heard stories from my dad about what had happened to my grandfather, because his dad went through it. My grandfather passed away, and I wasn't even 2 yet. It was like a month ago, in 1996, so March in 1996, and the stories that my dad, I'm sure it was somehow lost in translation or just like trauma, like trying not to remember exactly everything that happened, but because when you lose your whole family like that, they're murdered, massacred, like you're not going to remember everything. It was just my grandfather and his sister. He sent his sister here. I don't know like 100% all the details. He knew there was a connection. He literally carried her away. They were kept hidden because I guess bakers and other kind of workers like that, even if they were Armenian, they were kept alive because the Turks wanted to keep them alive to feed them.
For the empire.
Right. Even if afterwards they got rid of them, they wanted them in the moment to keep them fed. So I guess this one baker kept my grandfather and his sister hidden, and then eventually like they had to go. My grandfather sent his sister here, and he stayed back, and he became an orphan. And he kept getting adopted by other people. And again, I don't know if this is in Armenia or if it's another country. I don't think it was Jordan. That's where my dad was born, Jordan. I don't know if it was there yet. I don't know where he is at this point because, I don't know. I 100% know the details. But he became an orphan. He kept getting adopted, and all they really used him as was like kind of like a slave. Like he would just
Houseboy.
Right. He would he would be like a shepherd with the sheep. He would work in like a field and whatever. And then they'd bring him back to the orphanage or an orphanage, whatever. He would become an orphan over and over again. And then finally, this one, and I'm trying to remember, I don't know if he said it was a nun, Armenian nun or some Armenian woman adopted my grandfather, and her son was killed in the genocide. And she treated him really well, raised him actually, and treated him like a human being. And I don't know if like the other people that adopted him were Armenian or not. I'm sure, I'm going to assume they weren't, because I don't want to think like he was treated like that by his own people, but I don't know.
Yeah, you never know.
I'm not exactly sure. And so this woman treated him really well, and he always remembered her. And her son that was killed in the genocide, his name was Vatkez. And my dad named my dad Vatkez after him. My grandfather named my dad after him, and my dad named me. So that's like a really special story to me. I never really got to have an actual conversation with my grandparents because all four of them were gone by the time I was 6 years old. So, you know, having an adult, I know all these stories through my parents. So it's all, again, it's all kind of lost in translation. What I'd kill to talk to them about stuff like that,
Yeah,
you know,
for me,
just to know.
Yeah, for me, for my dad's side, my grandfather passed, but my grandmother and my grandfather from my dad's side, they really don't talk about it too much. They mentioned when we were younger, but I literally left that like they don't want to scar us when we're growing up, so we don't know much from that side. My dad definitely knows, and he doesn't like talking about it too much. But from my mom's side, I know actually my mom's mom, my mother's grandmother from my mom's side, her mother's side, she was a genocide survivor at the age of 2. So she was 2 years old. Her brother was, I believe, 15 years old. If I'm not mistaken, there were 3 sisters, 2 brothers. One brother was shot in line like they used to do at that point.
Right.
You come to a household, line you up under a wall, line up 8, 10 by the masses. So, you know, how they do different types of shooting. They shoot in the air once, boom, shoot them in the head, you know, type of deal. Very unnecessary. But what I know is that 2 of the sisters were lost. My grandmother was taken by her older brother that was alive and given to a family to basically bring her up. And that family married off my grandmother at the age of 14. And naturally, at that age, my grandmother doesn't remember much, but she now she's passed, but she remembers a little. And before she passed in Canada, like I think it was about 8 to 10 years ago, she would talk about it. And she would mention that it was just horrific. But you remember that at the age of 2. Imagine at the age of 2 remembering all this horrific stuff happened to your family at the age of 2. And that's something no one should see anyways, and someone especially at that age. But basically, she explained to me that family took her in. I can't remember if it was Armenian or not Armenian. But they took her in, brought her up, and she got married. And then naturally what happens, you move to a Middle Eastern country that's close by, somewhere such as Lebanon. And then they moved out. But horrific stories like that. And then, funny enough, my mom's father, my grandfather's, my other grandmother, and her sister's husband was in the genocide. He was put in an orphanage. And this is like a success story that came out of the Armenian genocide from a kid. So his name was Adam. So he was put in an orphanage. And this guy was a business type of deal, like at a young age, you know. This guy they used to give him chocolates. He would ration those chocolates, and that's what would be his snack, you know. He would eat some chocolates, keep the rest, and then sell the rest to make money. And this guy basically, all in short, this guy, basically the dad growing up at the young age, then got adopted, grew up, started a business. This guy died, unfortunately, but this guy started a multi-million-dollar company in textiles. This guy grew up, taught his 3 sons, and their 3 sons are multimillionaires, if not billionaires. And now their sons started that Armenian symphony called Kohar Yerchachum, the Kohar Armenian Symphony and Harmonic. Basically, imagine, for a small thing like that, going through all that stuff, you persevere. So that's not the only thing that's important about the Armenian genocide. It's not about only the massacres and the horror stories that happen in different many stories. Like we see in the movie The Promise that came out 2 or 3 years ago.
I think 3.
3 years ago.
At least 3 now. Wow.
Yeah,
but there's a lot of good stories too that come out of the Armenian genocide, because there's certain families that were able to leave and move out and eventually, let's say, move to the Middle East and become something, or from there move to America, etc., to other European countries. There's also light. There was light at the end of the tunnel for some of them, because maybe if it wasn't for that, they wouldn't have been able to move out and maybe become successful, make a name, make a statement for our small nation of 11 mil approximately. You know, like people like Alexis Ohanian, stuff like that. They made names for themselves, you know. Right.
I think it's been 4 years, actually.
4 years.
Now that I'm really thinking about it, yeah.
I thought it was more. I thought it was at least 4 or 5.
Yeah. All yours.
Yeah. I don't know. My story's similar to both of your stories, but my family story is a little bit different, because before the genocide in Turkey, like Vin was saying, even like 20, 30 years before the genocide, Turks and Armenians, we got along to a certain extent, but like there was always animosity towards us, because Armenians were bankers, we were lawyers, we owned big businesses, and Turks just either didn't know how to go about doing those things, or they'd rather just leave the mundane, minuscule, more hardworking things to people who were not Turks. So, like, my great-grandfather on my mom's side, he was from Ordu, which is a small, tiny city on the Black Sea north of Constantinople, probably like 6-8 hours away. He was married before the genocide. He had kids. He owned basically like a motel. He was one of like the elders in the village. So like whenever you had a problem, you would go talk to Apgar and Apgar would somehow either give you a solution or tell you you're going to do this, you're going to do that. If there was a dispute, everybody would go to him. And basically, from what my grandmother would tell us growing up, was it started with, okay, now Armenians have to be in their houses by 6 p.m. at night, let's say. And then it started with, now Armenians can no longer have any sort of firearms in their house. So they went around and collected everybody's guns.
Disarmed everyone.
Yeah, and then it was, now you can't carry knives on you. Because obviously back then people carried knives like it was a normal thing. It was not a far-out concept like you see here where you shouldn't be carrying a knife. It was normal. And then it started with slowly men started being drafted because war was coming and we need soldiers and you need to defend the empire and look what the empire has done for you. Now you have to give it back to the empire. So then my great-grandfather was too old to get drafted. But then they started with all this hate speech, propaganda. We're fighting the West. We're fighting the Russians. The Armenians have allied themselves with communism, and in the name of Islam, we have to oust all these different people. It wasn't just Armenians, obviously. It was Greeks, Assyrians, Jews, people with special needs, basically anybody that was not either Muslim or Turkish in their eyes had to go.
So being the Nazis before the Nazis.
Pretty much, yeah. Pretty much being
thing.
Nazis before the Nazis existed. Mm-hmm. And it started out with my great grandmother was actually killed by my great grandfather's best friend, who was a Turk. And he killed her in cold blood, took the dress off of her body, and went home and gave it to his wife as a gift. And then after that, excuse my language, but pretty much shit hit the fan.
Right.
And my great-grandfather ended up killing that man, getting arrested. They put him on the death marches. He marched all the way almost to Syria. I'd never made it to Syria, thank God, because God knows what would have happened. And as most of us know, like once you got to the Syrian desert, you were done. Mm-hmm. But along the way, there was different platoons of Ottoman soldiers, and a general saw my great-grandfather cooking because that's what he did. He ran a motel, basically, so he cooked, he cleaned. He was taking care of the elderly people. He would, one of the stories that I remember is he would catch turtles and carve all the meat out, take the shell, and he would give it to the elderly people as like a little porter potty, essentially, for when they were in the woods, like, so that they would at least be able to go away from people and like do their business and come back, because obviously like the Turks didn't care what you did. Like you were basically told to shit and piss yourself all you want. We don't give a shit. Like you're not a human being. Yeah, so, like he would do stuff like that. So this general saw that, oh, like this guy can cook, he can clean, he can do this, that, the third. So he took him in and treated him not bad, not great, obviously. Called him an infidel, like made him cook and clean, whatever. And eventually he said, can I just see if anybody I have is left? And he would just dismiss him. And then one day a letter came for my great-grandfather to the house, and it was from the priest that he knew from back home. And he said, we're just trying to figure out who's alive, who is not alive, and where they are, if they're coming back, et cetera, et cetera. We haven't found your kids. We haven't found your wife. But if you can reach back out, please reach back out. The general, like, adamantly denied, like, him leaving and going to find out what happened. So basically one of the other workers in the house helped my grandfather escape. He literally gave him a horse in the dead of night. He told him, you get the fuck out as fast as you can and you don't come back. And so he went back all the way to Ordu. He found out that his first wife, who was Armenian as well. She was actually pregnant at the time all this started. They rounded up all the pregnant women, blindfolded them, put them in a boat, told them that we were going to take you to your husbands, and threw them into the Black Sea pretty much, and they drowned them. And that was the first he heard of that. And then he had 3 kids before. My grandmother had 3 step-siblings. They all got dispersed. One of them ended up as a servant girl in one of their neighbors' houses who was Turkish. She was totally fine. They did not mistreat her at all. They hid her identity. They changed her name, gave her a Turkish last name, and she was fine. Her 2 brothers, one ended up going to Australia through like missionaries. He was picked up. They fed him. They clothed him. Eventually, he somehow got sent to Australia. And then the other brother ended up in Armenia, but he was actually on the marches, and he ended up losing a leg on the way, but he survived, and he ended up in Armenia. And then after that, when my great-grandfather was settled in back at home, and everything was said and done, quote-unquote, the war was over, the genocide was over, people started coming back, the Ottoman authority basically came to his doorstep, and there was like, these are 32 orphans that we don't know where they're from. We don't know what happened to their parents. We're assuming they're dead. They're Armenian, so now they're your problem. And he had no money. He had nothing to support them with. They took away all of his property, basically. And they were like, okay, here you go. You can feed and clothe and do whatever with these kids because you're Armenian and they're Armenian and we don't want anything to do with you. So then he met my great-grandmother, who was actually Greek from the same area, but she had lost her entire family throughout the genocide. And she decided to help him take care of the kids. They eventually got married, long story short. They had 3 kids of their own, my grandmother being one of them. They took care of all those kids, got all those kids adopted. All of them went to different parts of the world, Argentina, Spain, Armenia, some of them, Lebanon, Syria, you name it. They had kids that ended up going there. And then they eventually moved to Istanbul because doctors were better there, life was better there, et cetera, and what was there left in Urdu for them pretty much. And during the Second World War, they wanted to draft my great-uncle, and my great-grandparents were like, no, absolutely not, because he's not going to come home. So they moved to Istanbul, and they smuggled him out to Canada because they knew, like, it's only been like 10, 15 years. And if we send this kid, he's not going to come home. So then everybody either migrated to Toronto or the Boston area and continued having kids, continued being Armenian, speaking Armenian, learning about, and that's basically our story.
Yeah. Well, one more quick one while we're still on stories, actually. Obviously, these are all really tough to tell, and I know everyone has their stories, obviously. Another one was on my mom's side, my great-grandfather, you know, just hearing your story reminded me of that. They actually, some of them made it here. He brought them here.
Yeah, Ellis Island, New York.
Yep.
Yeah. And then he went back to fight, and then he died. He never came back. So, like, parts of their story that you just told me reminded me of that. And we always visit his grave, and they have his picture on it and everything here. Next to the Cunniff High School, where mostly everyone's buried around
Ritual,
right?
and the other one. But it's a really tough topic to talk about because some people always get down in the dumps about the whole past stories. But how do I explain it? It's like you can always, how do I say it, look at the past and get bogged down on that because you're better than that.
Right.
Let's get the show on the boat, right?
Yeah.
So that was a great thing about, like, that's the more current stories I heard from my grandparents that are alive right now and et cetera. It's that our parents were part of genocide. They either made it or they didn't make it, or one of them made it, et cetera. Their families made it. We might immigrated for most of my family into the Middle East, specifically Damascus and Lebanon. So what ended up happening is basically they got their life together. And the best thing of it all is that for some odd reason, if they ran into any Turkish individuals in like Lebanon, for the most part, they're very kind. So that's another aspect. We also, as Armenians, we can't be too insensitive about. It's that we always have to remember that it's not all Turks have that right mindset of saying, I hate you guys. You guys deserve to die. You guys aren't human beings. There's that aspect too, because Alan's family for sure. Their probably family ran into a lot of Turkish families at the time that took them. And I just remembered a bunch of stories as Alan was going, that from my mom, my grandmother from my mom's side, she stayed with a Turkish family. That's what it was, instead of Armenian family. They took her in, nor did they change their identity. They kept her in. They didn't like use her as a servant or anything like that. They let her grow up, and if anything, they educated her. That's another crazy thing. I just remember my dad's grandmother at the time. I probably can say about this all about our families who ended up staying in the Ottoman Empire, Western Armenia of the time. Most of them didn't really speak Armenian after all that incident.
No, a lot of Armenians from Turkey still don't speak because it's dangerous.
It's dangerous, and some of them just ended up learning Turkish, and obviously it's like a cover.
Yeah, and you had to assimilate. Yeah,
assimilate, exactly. And some of them, it's like they say, it's better to know your enemy.
Your enemy's language, yeah.
Always. And basically, I just remember it's that my great grandmother from my dad's side, all she spoke was Turkish, but she could read and write. But my dad was impressed at a young age when you come to America from Beirut at the age of 12. It's that his grandmother imposed to his daughter, my grandma, you can't send these kids anywhere other than an Armenian school. Make sure they learn. I didn't get to learn. Make sure they learn. You have to keep it alive. You're not in your own lands anymore. That's another thing. We have to always understand is that if, obviously you have to think in the brighter way, is that if we never, not that it was good that the genocide happened, but that helped us grow in a good way. It allowed us to get out of our shell in Armenia, in Eastern Turkey, and it helped us grow, and people finally learned who we are. Can you be honest with me and tell me about 100, 150, 160 years ago, other than intellectuals who know about history and etc., knew who the Armenians were? Not that this is a good reason. The genocide was a good way of learning who Armenians are, but I think, not that it was a good thing, but this helped us move out of our comfort zone and try to get somewhere and expose ourselves and try to become places. Like we have professional right now for example, on CNN, we have an Armenian guy. That's one of their main anchors. We have, what's his face for baseball, the Armenian guy.
Tim Kirkjian.
We have Steve Sarkisian of the Falcons, etc. You know? So it's a bad thing, but we also have to think about it in a good way too. It's 106 years later.
Yeah. Yeah, and going based off a couple of things you said, 106 years later, that really wasn't that long ago.
No, it's not.
Like some of these stories, like for anyone that's listening, obviously I'm going to go ahead and break the fourth wall for a little bit. Like obviously most of the people listening are probably Armenian listening, watching, but anyone that doesn't know anything about this and by any chance or really wants to learn more by watching this, all these stories we've just shared, it sounds like it was so long ago. Some of the tools that they used, the jobs that they had, and all, it really was not that long ago.
No,
which is the craziest part of it. And it's been happening since the beginning of our existence. Yeah, and it's still happening.
And the crazy thing is stuff like this, not only to Armenians, are happening to other people currently at this moment.
Right.
Like in Africa, China, etc. People are getting killed by the masses. Just not long, a year ago, right before COVID, there was problems happening in Greece and stuff like that. People are always getting exterminated, as the way the Turks would love to say it.
Yeah. And, you also said not all of them are bad. Of course. It's not... Humans don't naturally have hate in their heart. I'm sure at the time, there were some people, like in your story, where some people just switched up and they bought right into it.
Yeah, of course. No questions asked.
But there's also the stories of them, others helping, and they risked their lives to do that. They could have been killed by their own people.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
For example, sorry, go ahead. But like, for example, a bunch of movies like in BLM, like during the movements, a lot of movies have been popping up on TV and on Netflix. We see often that like when the North and the South were clashing, we've seen a lot of movies that those colored individuals that were being killed, kept as slaves, and when they would escape or they were lucky enough to move and go on foot or on horse, they would come up north, for example, near our area.
Yeah.
And white individuals would be kind to them. They wouldn't use them as servants, to let them go be free men, So it's like saying, that's why I'm saying, not at that time for the blacks, not and colored individuals. Not all white people were bad,
Mhm.
you know. And I think it's the same with Turks, because my grandfather would always say that growing up in Beirut, that a bunch of his best customers as a tailor, he was a very high end tailor before he moved here, and obviously here too. But custom tailoring, most of his customers were Turkish, and they're very considerate and not backwards minded. You know,
Yeah.
it was just unfortunate of events, needless to say.
I was gonna say, I just feel like when we think of bad Turks, it's the ones over there, and it's a product of
Yeah,
their
of
government. It's a
course.
product of their system. Because I know a decent amount either here or I know of them, or I went to school with them, or I've interacted with them. They're pretty good people. Like they're nice people.
And
It's
some of them go on social media and acknowledge stuff.
Yeah,
and
of course.
Like,
so
yeah, people like Anis Cantor as well.
yeah, I mean, yes, I don't think he's actually acknowledged it. He's just
He
just hates his
He hates
government.
his government,
Yeah, he just
But
hates his government. So
it's
that's a different story. But I mean, yeah, man, I don't know.
No, and it's
Go
one
ahead.
thing that, like, yeah, there's good and bad in all people. Yeah, there's good Turks. Yeah, there's bad Turks. Yeah, there's good Armenian people. There's awful
Good
Armenian
Armenian
people.
people,
right.
It's anywhere. But, like, yes, we say, like, it's been 106 years. Okay, it's been 106 years. And a lot of, I'm sure you've heard it from your non-Armenian friends, like, why do you care?
Exactly.
Why are you so into your culture all the time? Why are you always going to these events, whether it's a church-related event or like Scouts or Olympics, and like just like a lot of my friends growing up were like, "Why do you care so much? Like, you live in America," and it's like, yeah, okay, we live in America, but like, not that I'm not thankful for being born in the United States of America, being a U.S. citizen. Like, we have rights and privileges that nobody in the world has, but it wasn't our choice to be born here, and like. Yeah, it's been 106 years, but when you're gaslighted by a government that just constantly says this didn't happen, you're making things up, or it was a time of war, both sides lost people, and then when they go and they make propaganda about how your people who were literally on the brink of extinction went and massacred hundreds of millions of Turkish people, and you see pictures of documented evidence by non-Armenian, non-Turkish, non-combatant people, Germans, English people, of victims of the Armenian genocide, and the Turkish government or the Azeri government or whoever it may be takes it and says, look at what these Armenians did to these Turkish people. And then you have people saying, well, why do you care?
Right.
Also, there's another thing. Why do you care too? There's another aspect, and I think we all can agree with this, is that 106 years ago, they went through all of this, right?
Yeah.
And we're here. The least we can do in their memory and every other Armenian's memory, and those individuals who were non-Armenian, who were close to Armenians, keep the culture alive, right? Via athletics, via scouts, via different political, events, by
Dance
church,
groups. Yeah.
dance groups. All
yeah.
those things are a way of bringing past history from then and before that back alive. Like, for example, dance, right? You won't take me as a dancer, but I love dance, okay? But the great thing is for me is, like, everyone has their own different thing. But for me, when that song turns on and you hear the beat going at it and slow, fast, different type of style music for the dance, the backstory of each song. And then once you get on stage and when you're performing, it's a different exhilarating experience, because when you're finally dancing, there's dancing at the studio and practicing. Then there's the dancing for the audience. And the thing is, when you go on that stage, it may not be exactly what happened 100 years ago, 200, 300, 400, etc. that many years ago, but you're bringing life, our past history. For me, it's exhilarating. You get goosebumps every time and adrenaline rush. And that's one thing. And for me, church people always forget, not only being Armenian, but one of our biggest problems why the genocide happened was that we weren't
Muslim, we were Christian.
We were Christian, I don't want to get into the religious aspect, what you should be, what not should be, but imagine.
No, I mean, that's cut and dry. That's why. That's one of the main reasons why it happened.
And people always forget that us being Christian was a big front runner of reason why we got exterminated. Same with like the Syrians, because I know as well, I'm a Catholic Armenian. my dad would say in Harvard Square at Pete's Coffee when they moved a Catholic church there, we'd run into a lot of Syrians, for example, who are non-Armenians, but they're Syrians, but they're Catholic. So, so religion was a huge front runner because not only were we massacred then, we were the majority, but we also had Assyrians,
Greeks,
etc.
Jewish people.
It was down the line, like everyone that came in front of their face. It's like going into a supermarket and just, unfortunately, I don't bring this up, but it's like almost going in a supermarket and pulling a gun in everyone's head that doesn't look like you or want to be like you.
They had the Kurds help them forcefully,
and
then they killed them.
And then they killed them too.
Now,
and they're
100 years later, they're killing Kurds because they're not Turks.
Yeah.
And the best thing about it all,
it's not funny, but
but it's like what?
Interesting fact. The Kurdish people are the biggest nation in the world. I think they're about 30 something.
Yeah, without a country.
Homeland or a country.
Yep.
Yeah.
So think about that. Yeah. And imagine, we're lucky we still have some of our homeland.
Yeah.
Now, unfortunately, for other reasons, we're getting smaller, but as we speak. But imagine, we were lucky enough to keep some of our lands. There's a nation out there who got exterminated during that time and taken in and held well by the Turks. And then 100 years later, they're still massacring them. 30 million people that don't have a homeland or a motherland or fatherland, however you look at it.
When I was at UMass Boston, I had a Kurdish advisor, loves Armenians.
Yeah, of course.
Loves them. Loved me. Treated me like better than anyone else walked. It was awesome. So like they're not, again, like they were forced to do stuff like that. And I definitely feel for them. But speaking of like bringing up like Armenia in general, like because we were Christians and like the placement and homeland and all that, what a tough draw that country got, Armenia got.
Oh yeah, we're just
the placement
surrounded by Muslims on all sides that just want us gone.
Yeah,
but
literally every direction.
But here's the thing people always forget, historically, right, is that people forget we weren't only massacred. This was our biggest massacre story. We had problems back in the day, even before.
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah. And we were there first. That's the biggest problem.
And first, Armenians, back in the day, right? They always call about Kach Vartan Mamigonian, right? Even back then, man, we weren't even Christian then. Even before pagan. The pagan. We're pagan, right?
Yeah.
But Vartan Mamigonian.
And Armenian, there's a saying that the Armenians, in all their history of existence, we've always been in, how do we explain it? We've grown up
in the ashes.
We've been fighting for our existence.
Yeah, and we've grown up in the ashes. We've always grown up in our ashes.
Yeah.
And it's terrible because it's not only this, it's that not that everyone has to understand, but also some Armenians have to understand this is not the only thing that's happened bad to us. We have to always, it's not April 24th isn't something we celebrate or commemorate once a year. There's millions of other things we should commemorate yearly. And me personally, I commemorate every day I'm on this earth, because if it wasn't for our grandparents, our past, if they didn't
go through what they
went
through
with it,
yeah.
If they died, well, I wouldn't be here right now speaking on this table.
We're a product of circumstance.
Yeah,
that's what it is, and we got to make the most of it, of course.
Exactly, and that's another thing. Like Alan said, to go back to that, why do we care? This is exactly why we care.
That's exactly why we care.
The brink of
because we have no other choice.
Oh yeah, you'd think Watertown, the kids would understand. Like we would always get the, why do you, like, what do you do? Why is it like every time, every April? Because it's the entire month of April, hanging up stuff on the walls.
Yeah.
And I'd always get like, because we have like Watertown, I'm pretty sure still the only high school, public high school. There's two of them now?
Yeah, it's Glendale High School and Watertown.
Waltham is
they teach
has
Armenian. And it's like every year, every April, we have the Armenian club in the class and everything. We'd always prepare.
Yeah, because Watertown's also the second largest Armenian population outside of Glendale.
Right. And so I'd still get questions. Like, we all would get questions like, what? Every year, man, every year. What do you guys do this every year? We get it. We got to do it.
Yeah, you
have
to.
Yeah,
you get it.
And sometimes they don't get it. Sometimes they don't get it, which is interesting too. Is that you think we're not sick and tired of demonstrating, commemorating,
having to do this every year,
or having some awareness,
or having to defend something that is indisputable fact.
Right.
And people still say you're crazy, and it was 100 years ago. Get over it, and et cetera, and nobody cares about it anymore. Why do you guys care? But like, hey, look, like, less than a year ago, again,
the
Turks and Azeris decided to come after us again.
We don't-
It's a
we
whole
don't
different subject. But like, look, like at the end of the day, history ignored is history repeated.
We don't say that word, Azeri. We don't say that. We say
sorry.
sub-Turk.
Yeah,
around these
sub-Turks.
parts.
Yeah, that's
They're
true.
sub-Turks.
So here-
Yeah.
here-
They're Turks that left Turkey and made another country.
And then
and they're China.
complained that the Turks wanted to take them over.
Yeah.
And then they killed their grandparents, and then they submitted anyways and became Turks.
Yeah.
Here's the biggest problem too. It's that
Sub-Turks.
there's people, even Armenians don't understand either. That's another thing. We're talking about non-Armenians. I don't want to discriminate, but there's also non-Armenians that don't understand why we still do this. For me, it's interesting. It's like, for example, you're Italian, right? Let's say you're like first generation Italian, born here, or second generation, right? If you want to go back to your homeland, I don't know what the numbers are, but like Italy is probably more concentration of Italians there than it is here in U.S., technically speaking, right?
Yeah, of course.
Right? Any nation, France, more French people in France than there is in U.S., let's say hypothetically. Let's keep it generalized to U.S., right? Now, if you're Armenian, right? There's other countries the same way, but let's say you're Armenian, you got exterminated 106 years ago, right? You say, oh, I'm going to my homeland. Oh, what's the population of your country?
3 million.
If that, we're
A little
about,
bit less.
after all these last mishaps, we're about 2.2 if we're lucky.
Yeah.
And there's more, if I'm not mistaken, there's more Armenians in the U.S. than there is in
Yeah.
actual Armenia.
Triple the amount around
Yeah.
the world.
Yeah.
The whole world,
Yeah,
I
there's
think,
11 million of us
almost
total.
total, and we're about
9
just-
million of us live outside of the actual country.
and unfortunately, due to all those circumstances, the land getting taken away now and in the past, no one wants to go back.
11 million in the world. And 1.5 million died
Yeah, and
over
1.5
100
million
years
died,
ago.
yeah.
So just
Mhm.
imagine that.
And that 11 mil is now.
Estimated, yeah.
Yeah.
Could be
Estimated.
more, it could be a little bit less.
Look,
but like,
even at a million.
No, no,
even
yeah,
at a
yeah,
million.
yeah.
That's what?
yeah,
With 11 million?
Well-
1 million?
Well,
yeah.
well, hold up.
yeah.
Don't
There
do
you
the
go.
math then.
Just literally
I think-
just take away like
well,
what's that, a
here's the
tenth
math.
of your people.
The
pretty
math
much.
back then, we're around 5.5 or 6 mil
Right.
at the time.
Yeah.
Right. With the world's population in comparison, you know, it's
so, but you're saying 1.5, 11 mil. Let's be real. Let's say 5.5 to 6 mil Armenians at the time, and
Yeah.
1.5 were
Right,
exterminated.
right,
So
right.
imagine that. Don't
Right,
compare it to the 11
right.
mil.
Right. No, I'm saying like
Yeah.
imagine at this time.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
if something like that at this time. There's way less. I mean, you know, not to compare, but like the Holocaust, like there's a way more Jewish people that got
Yeah,
obviously
yeah.
killed, but
6
you know how
million
many
Jews.
people they had already
Yeah.
to begin with.
Not to say,
Not
it's
to
a good
say
thing,
anything.
yeah.
You know, I'm
No,
not
no, no,
belittling that, but it's like the percentages are just incomparable
Yeah.
when it comes to both. And
But that was also several countries worth of
right,
Yeah.
right.
Jewish
that was
people.
just
It
that was
wasn't
just mayhem. That was
Germany.
absolute
This was
insanity.
in
Yeah.
one.
You want to hear
country.
actually interesting fact about you? We lost a bunch of Armenians then too.
During
Yeah.
World War II.
Yeah.
Yeah.
During all the Holocaust,
yeah,
and we
yeah,
lost
yeah.
a bunch
Yep,
of Armenians.
Yeah,
A lot.
yeah. I mean, everyone lost.
I think if I'm
Someone,
not mistaken,
yeah.
we lost about, this is documented, I don't know how much of it's reality, because I also know during the Holocaust, all the Jewish people who identified as Jewish, the numbers aren't accurate,
Yeah.
right? Meaning it was more. Same with the Armenian genocide. My grandfather, who writes volumes of books and critiques people, there's documented, right now, there historians are saying the Armenian historians are saying we could have actually notched around 1.7 to almost 2 mil.
Yeah. Easy.
If not easy. And according to the documents right now from the World War II, we've lost about 250,000 Armenians then. And imagine if those are all men, technically, if you count about each one of them getting married, hopefully,
Yeah.
and if they had
having a
each
minimum
kids,
of 2 or 3
multiply
kids.
that each household about 2. You have double min.
Yeah, and like
You know?
speaking of the Holocaust, like Hitler said, if you who remembers the Armenians,
Yeah.
like you said, history repeats itself.
Yeah.
And I think like another reason why people, you know, like the stories that we just said, like why are you taking it so seriously every year? It's like, well, this is our month to do it. You know,
Yeah.
unless obviously, you know, late last year with what had happened, the war and all that. Yeah, there's other times where things come up.
Yeah.
That's like that with everyone. But there's other times when other things happen where it seems like we're talking about it at other parts of the year, not just April. But like this is like an automatic set time
Yeah.
to talk
because-
about this. That's just something that's happened
No,
recently.
we're talking about all that thing because all those other times we're talking about April 24th and the Armenian genocide because for a lot of people around the world they still say that this did not happen.
Right.
This was false propaganda. This was the Armenians sided with the Russians, and you got what you deserved, and you guys also killed a bunch of Turks and XYZ and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
So when you're getting gaslighted all the time, like, what are you going to do? You're going to continue to talk about it, or are you just going to shut your mouth and move along?
Right.
Like,
and we can't do this like all year round. Our people can't do this. I know a lot of people want to talk about it all the time, but you're going to lose your mind.
Yeah.
You can't stress out about this all year. You obviously, like, that's not what our ancestors, our great-grandparents, our grandparents would have wanted.
Yeah.
Driving ourselves crazy over this all year round, every day of our lives, honestly, like, that might be what it takes at this point.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, but like, there's a reason why this is the time, and this is why we do it for anyone that's honestly really confused. Like thinking about like Watertown, I'm sorry, like it got me like a little heated again, just like talking about that and like remembering that, like they wouldn't want us stressing about this all the time.
No.
They would want us to live our lives.
Well, so here's the other unfortunate thing. You know what the biggest theme is right now? Why are we doing all these commemorations, demonstrations here in the U.S.? We want the biggest country in the world, the most influential country in the world.
The one with the biggest population of Armenians outside of actual.
We want this
Armenia
country to
proper.
recognize it and kind of give Turkey a stiff, be like,
And I
look.
still haven't.
Yeah.
So here's the big deal about it, though. I was blind to this growing up. Oh, you're younger, you don't really think about stuff. But the unfortunate thing is we want this to be recognized. And what time are we at right now? In general, what time is it right now? Around 6:37?
7:08.
7:08. Approximately two hours ago, we got the news that
Joe
Biden's going to
Biden.
go ahead and talk about it. And last night there was news too, but it was shaky. But you know what the crazy thing is? Now I'm excited that officially, hopefully it doesn't fall through, but after saying this many words that you're going to talk about it and say U.S. accepts it, 49 states accept it. So the biggest thing for me is that now that I look at it, unfortunately, because times has passed so long, and other countries have started to adopt the idea of accepting the Armenian genocide. The unfortunate thing about it all is that we're at a point where even if U.S. does accept it,
It means nothing.
It means nothing. That's the unfortunate thing about it. I don't want to be a Debbie Downer, but I'm trying to be kind of realistic. I'm not being morbid. I always think about the brighter side about everything, always. But you got to be real sometimes. It's like, not to anyone's fault, but like, we're at a point where the most influential country in the world is accepting it now. It's not going to make a difference. The only thing is to do, there was reports already written right after they said Biden accepted it. They were saying that there's going to be
Pushback from Turkey.
Yeah, of course.
Right?
There
But
always is.
if you go on Zartunk Media, people go look at Zartunk Media, there's already reports saying that Turkey is not going to like it, clearly.
Of course.
But they said there's going to be repercussions for U.S. accepting that towards the Armenians. So we got to, if it does happen, we got to hold tight, see what happens in the next month.
Yeah, they said it could affect the current stance, whatever that
Oh, yeah, they're
means.
trying to open trade with Armenia.
Yeah, or just be on good terms.
Yeah.
And you want to hear something crazy I heard today on
Stop
Armenian
it.
News? Armenian News. You think this is the time of genocide, it's the commemoration month, etc. All the mishaps between Azerbaijan and Turkey against us in the fall, winter time, right? My grandpa turns around to me in the morning. I come down from doing homework. He goes, you want to hear something crazy? I'm like, what's up? He goes, Armenia has been exporting shoes. Like, our fake Yeezys and stuff like that, but shoes. We've been shipping out 1 million pairs of shoes, any type of shoes, sneakers, etc., leather shoes, etc. I think for the last 2 years now, about every 6 months at a time, 1 million pairs, right? Turkey this last few months, just to get in competition and try to get on Russia's good side, is trying to send in 1.1 million pairs of shoes. I saw that on Armenian News today. It was mind-boggling. The funny thing about Russia, however, everyone, the viewers and everyone on this table thinks about them, Russia told them, you can keep your 1 million we're getting from Armenia. We'd rather pay them than you. But it's ridiculous, man. How are you going to try to top us on everything when we're the ones?
It's always been
When
like
you
that.
literally
They've
got
always wanted
rich. You literally got rich and built your country on the blood and possessions and money of our ancestors.
If you think about it, half that Western Armenia, that portion they took over during the Ottoman Empire time, those part of those lands are where the oil comes to the U.S., right?
Yep.
I'm not going to get into U.S. politics more into it, but think about it. If as Armenia is right now, the viewers who are Armenian know about Armenia, you guys know what the situation is there economically. But for the non-Armenians, it's not really that well, especially after the big war that broke out in September, technically through December. But economically, Armenia has been in trouble due to the past leadership and the corruptness that was happening when we were trying to get on our feet. But that on the old map, that Western Armenia portion that was taken over by the Ottoman Empire, that land would have been ours as of right now if that never happened. And that country would be flourishing, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, no.
Between all the mining material and all that gas we would have had.
Just to go off like a little bit here, like multiple things that you said, I really want to respond to it. So with that, that's a huge part, the genocide and the land getting taken and everything, but it's always been like that for them. There's a reason why there's 2 independent states for Armenia, because they just keep getting taken. Obviously, the second time was pretty much a necessary, I don't know what I'm
Soviet split.
It was it kind of had to be done at that point.
It was a dismemberment of the USSR.
Right,
exactly.
And then that turned into something that wasn't very favorable for a little bit there, and then they were thrown on their own again. So, and it's long before the Ottomans came in and committed genocide and everything. Armenians been getting tossed around for a while now, and they've never really gotten the chance over there to stabilize and like try to grow. I can't even think of the last time they probably were. It was a stable country, really. Honestly,
during the USSR, we were the most stable, if anything.
Right.
Out of the Soviet countries,
independently, I'm saying, like on their own. You're going back like hundreds.
You're going back at least 3,000 years.
Yeah, you're going during our royalty era.
Yeah,
kings and queens.
Right. And to talk about with the U.S., so I'm really hoping this happens. Obviously,
I do too.
We're all
needless
really
to say after what I said.
Yeah.
And I get what you're saying. What does it do now? Because it's been 106 years. You're a little late to the party, you know. Come on.
But do you really think it's going to change something? Really?
So
overall, in the grand scheme of things,
the thing that comes to my mind, the first thing that comes to my mind, I get what you're saying. We're not going to get land back. You can't get those people back. Nothing's coming back.
No. I never thought that
from
way
just simply
with
this.
myself.
Those are the extremes.
Yeah.
The most important thing that this does, if it happens, it's put into the history books.
Yeah, bro. We need
this country.
books,
you can't put that in a history book when it's not accepted or recognized by the country
or if there
itself.
is something, it's like a little half a paragraph about the Armenian massacres. And
by accepting that this happened in world history, kids, I'm hoping it should happen when you take history class, middle school, probably not middle school, but high school, and you learn about these things. There's the Holocaust in your history books.
Yeah.
If this happens, the Armenian genocide is going to be right there too, and that's really important.
Yeah.
That's really, really important. That's the most important thing that comes to my mind
Exactly.
first.
That's the only thing I can see.
Right. I'm trying to think of other things that are really stand out, but it's a historical moment, realistically speaking. It's really late,
I'm not
but
dismissing the historical portion of it, but it's like,
and we're not going to stop because of it.
No,
it's the same thing every year. No. Yeah. There just will be probably less screaming at the consulate, but anyways,
there's no promises there.
Yeah, maybe not the consulate, but somewhere else. There'll be a little less screaming, but the job got done in that aspect. But there's still a lot more work.
Look, we have to give a lot of credit. Look, you know how we're talking about Armenians got out of the countries and now they're trying to grow. Like we have higher up people like Mr. Nubar Afeyan being on the Moderna and Aurora Foundation being good, and Mr. forgot his first name, Grigorian from the Aurora Foundation.
Yep.
That passed away.
I was going to say Kirk Krikorian.
Kirk Krikorian. But we have a lot of higher up people, right? So now we have Miss Manugyan in Wisconsin, the lady who she got into Senate.
Yeah, Madi.
Yeah. She got in there. Mm-hmm. And clearly when Biden got in, we got some Armenians up in the politics of it all. And we're growing. There's no stopping us anymore. Because this is the one last step. And if this gets accepted, we're not letting it loose, but it's time to get our ducks in order. Let's actually do stuff. Right. Because at the end of the day, for me, right now, not that we shouldn't be doing it, but we've been first 50 years, you're whining and crying about it. Next 50 years, you're whining and crying, and we're now at a 106. 106 years later. We don't have to whine and cry anymore. Let's actually do something about it.
Right.
In the sense of make statements, make sure people understand.
Sorry, I'm just answering.
No, you're good.
Go ahead. Say whatever
No,
you
no,
need to say.
and I know a lot of people share Sean's sentiment, or I don't even know if you have that actual sentiment. You're just saying it about why are we whining? Let's do something about it. Why are we whining?
Yeah, I do
like
have
I know a decent amount of Armenian people that have said to me like, why do we do this every year? Like,
Yeah, exactly.
This does nothing for us. This does nothing for the homeland. This does nothing to help us economically. It does nothing to help us politically, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, but if 106 years ago didn't happen, we would not be this little tiny patch of land with no water around it, enemies on all sides, whatever, and be in a shit political and economic situation.
Look, let's leave it as simple.
All you gotta ask him is what's your plan?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But like we hear it, or like I hear it from a lot of people. Like we got to stop focusing on genocide recognition. We got to stop focusing on genocide recognition
to a certain extent.
Yeah, we do. But how do you stop focusing on it when every year, year after year, even day after day, like even Erdogan a while ago, I think it was like a year ago, when April was coming around, he said something about we're going to deal with the remnants of the sword left in our country. Mm-hmm. But the genocide never happened according to Turkey, and we are all absolutely batshit insane. Like
that's the point. It's just we do this every year because it's like, imagine you're having like an argument with someone, like you literally not to make it like minuscule or anything in the scenario. Just like you just took my phone and walked out of the room.
And I'm holding your phone.
I watched you. There's a camera here. You're on my phone. You're doing something.
Your phone.
He's the witness and everything. And you're just denying it, and no one believes it.
And
you're like,
I'm holding your phone.
Yeah, it's basically holding.
And I'm blue in the face, screaming at the top of my lungs,
I don't have your phone.
and you're still denying it.
Your phone.
And it's and then it goes on for 100-something years.
But then I make comments about.
Right.
Oh, by the way, like, I have pieces of your phone,
Right.
but I don't have the whole phone.
Exactly.
Like,
Right.
And you know what the thing is?
it's not
ridiculous.
What the hell? I know, but like, what do you think people are gonna do? You're gonna yell, we're not blue in the face right now, but like, come on, man, like you're gonna scream at the top of your lungs.
I don't know how I'm gonna transition back, but Alan said that. Oh my God, Alan said like, why do you guys keep on doing it? Like,
it does nothing for the homeland.
Right?
Does nothing
Exactly.
for
That's what I was looking for.
Whatever.
I agree with that. Like, there should
So
be.
do I.
Yeah, I agree.
They're not connected.
No, I said they're two separate entities, right?
Yeah.
And they should have more focus on it both together at separate times, right?
They can both be
Month
done.
of April and like focus on the commemoration. We always do that. Obviously, every organization, Watertown area, etc., we do spend time raising money and stuff.
Yeah.
For example, as being a member of AGBUYP, every event we do, a good chunk of the portion of our money we make back goes back to some program in Armenia. Besides the point, but my idea is this. It's like, we do that, let's go raise money. But when all those stuff happened in BLM, right? Me personally, some girl from my high school in Waltham had a fundraiser for, I gave money, right? I gave money. I believe in the cause. And like, the same thing happened to us more or less different ways, obviously, but I sympathize with them and I totally understand. So I donated money, right? I'll never forget when Haiti had that whole storm hit them. My parents donated money. Did they have to? No. People thought my parents were crazy, but they're like, we have something of that sort happening to us. Let's donate money. So that's another thing. If we keep on doing this genocide commemoration stuff, hopefully one day, hopefully we get to see it, is that once it gets accepted and we start doing fundraisers via the idea of the commemoration instead of fundraising other ways. We can say this month of April is for commemoration of the Armenian genocide, right? Hopefully we set up some fundraiser, let's say in Boston, as a mini project. That whole month, people other than Armenians start donating, right? That money goes straight to Armenia. Why not? I gave money to BLM, there was a movement. I gave money. I believed in it. I want to support my friends, support it, give money back. If we can get to that point, that'll be another avenue of trying to get income to the country, but in a cleaner way, hopefully. That's another topic for another day, but.
And again, a couple more things, like based off of like what you guys have said, like the whole trying to get recognition for the genocide and helping Armenia out financially and economically, whatever. Those are two completely different things. You can do both. You don't have to take away focus all from one and put it on another, you know? Like, so whoever does say that, it's like, come on, like, You can do both. There's a way to do
Yeah,
both.
of course you're gonna do both. No. And that wasn't even like what I was getting at when
Right,
saying
no,
it. It was
that's
more
just me,
like, cause like I've heard like, why do we push this so much, but we don't try to build up Armenia and Armenia's economy and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But it's like, yes, like I understand, like we're doing that too outside of the month of April, but the bigger picture is if what happened didn't happen, or if maybe we got some sort of recognition or reparations, like if the world came down on Turkey as hard as it did Germany post World War II,
that's the beginning.
the country of Armenia, we might not have had to worry about how are we going to grow economically, how are we going to grow infrastructure. Like we would have been in a much better position.
Right. Now it's too late.
And now it's way too late. Yeah, now we're picking up the pieces, but like we've been picking up the pieces and we're still getting rocks thrown at us, even though we're still trying to pick up the pieces.
Yeah. And speaking of Black Lives Matter, like that's the second thing, you know. I did a video on that, like what was it, almost a year or a year ago?
About
a year ago, George Floyd,
ago,
after all that. And thank God that, you know,
that was settled this past week.
Oh my God. But anyways, you know, it kind of, they don't, you know, hand in hand, it's relatable because of like what I said earlier. Yes, you would only hear from us about all this month.
Yeah.
Realistically, like heavily. Because, you hear it all year round, but like this is the month for it. But something just happened not even 6 months ago.
Yeah.
And it just, you know, like it's the same thing with them, with African Americans and everything. They're going to have their Black History Month no matter what in February. But if people are going to still keep getting killed outside of February and things are going to keep happening,
of course,
you're going to hear from them.
Of course.
Yeah, of course.
It's the same thing.
100%.
It's the same thing.
Exactly.
If we weren't still getting killed, if we weren't still, they weren't still trying to take over the country and finish us off,
we wouldn't be yapping.
You wouldn't be hearing this
exactly
at other points in the year as heavily as you did back in fall.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's just how it is.
200%.
So that's the tough part. And I really wanted to transition to like kind of more modern stuff. We had our stories leading up to it. So, you know, we've actually almost at an hour now, 57 minutes we just hit.
Wow.
It goes by fast, right? I know this is your first podcast. Yeah. It goes by really fast. So, and I know you probably have a lot to say, and I really want you to. I don't know. I figure you might.
No, I got most of it.
Maybe all of us combined, maybe. Just modern, like, things that are happening now, how it's affected us with each other, Armenians. Yeah, because obviously growing up in Watertown or even Waltham, nearby, we know, you know what I'm talking about. Yeah. How, you know, we've kind of ended up around here.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe not recently, but, you know, the whole St. James, St. Stephen's thing as well. I'm really getting at here.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like,
or just you're from here, I'm from here.
Right.
Like,
and like, ever since I've become like aware of these kinds of things, because my dad grew up St. Stephen's, my mom grew up St. James. They got married and had me. So it's like, can't be all bad. So it's a little bad.
Just kidding.
It just blows my mind as like, I don't know, as someone, you know, I don't speak, obviously. I really wish I did. You guys know that. And
you still have time.
I do have time. I should be able to
learn.
It's no one else's fault but mine at this point.
You have the right system around you.
Yeah. And, you know, I walk into St. Stephen's sometimes, even St. James sometimes, but mostly St. Stephen's. Not to
uncomfortable.
Right. And I know, and that's why I wanted to bring it up with you, because I know you feel the same way. It's for a different reason.
Yeah.
But you feel the same way because just because I don't speak, like, look what I'm doing here right now. Look what we're doing here right now. Like, just because, you know, you lack in one department doesn't mean you aren't working there, you know? Like, it's just like it.
So
go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So to go off that real quick, right? I'm gonna keep this portion I'm about to say real brief. We had all that genocide happen, right? I'm getting modern, the 50s, 60s, right? Mm-hmm. Our families moved to Syria, Lebanon, man. Needless to say, all these different political groups. I don't want to get nitty gritty and
right. I'm not going to name names. Like besides the churches, obviously, because everyone knows what I'm talking about. Right?
But the nitty gritty about it all is that. Forget now, 1950s, 90s in Lebanon, man. Armenians were killing each other. Okay, there's a different political.
70s,
70s, okay. There's that. Now we're what? Now we're in America. We're 2021, April 22nd. Unfortunately, you think, bro, we're not in Armenia anymore. I personally don't think there should be any need of political, how do I say it? Political, I guess, groups are fine, but discriminating based off your political group is a big no-no. Everyone's Armenian at the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
We're only, how did we say earlier, 11 mil? About maybe, let's say, half of us are active Armenians or Armenian, or what's the right word? I can't think right now.
Engaged?
No. Wow, I really can't think of the word. We say I can't think of the word. I don't know why.
Go ahead. Like,
when someone asks you, where are you from? I go, I'm Armenian.
Okay. Yeah.
Identify, that's the word.
Right.
Let's say we have 11 million Armenians, or about 5 to 6 mil of us identify completely when anyone asks. I'm proud to say, But these political differences and indifferences should be all left behind in the past, man. That was something you worry about. Like, you're an American, right? In America, there's no Republican and Democrat viewpoint. Like the specific Republican and Democrat.
Like, you don't walk around going, "Hi, I'm a Republican. Nice to meet you."
That's not your first
exactly.
Yeah.
That's what we used to do in Armenia. That's different. We're in America right now, right? Let's dodge that bullet. You can still I don't care. You can believe in whatever you want, but don't make it the number one thing on your list. If this person's not that, this person's that. Oh, I can't be friends with you. Oh, I can't be close. Or I can't get married to you.
Or I can't come to this location because of X, Y, and Z reason. Like,
needless to say, I don't want to get into nitty gritty, but there's times where I feel uncomfortable in certain people's presence because I know how they feel, and certain locations.
It's really mostly here that I'm talking about, by the way. Like,
it's mostly a Boston issue. It's not really like
New Jersey, LA.
No. I mean, of course, there's like little minuscule amounts of it everywhere, but like here, it's like it's bad. Like we grew up like.
Right.
Our parents would tell us, you can't go there, you can't do this because of this, and this reason. They act like this, they do the third, whatever, and vice versa.
Right.
So the great thing for me, just to go off that and I'll let you talk, is that one thing I'm happy about my parents, right? They went through all their things with their own political beliefs growing up, and they were forced into believing that way. But as they got to our age, they realized, both of my parents, imagine one growing up in Lebanon during the war, the age until 24, 25 when she got married. My dad, with that political background coming in from his family, coming here in America at the age of 12, not knowing the language, right? So the important thing is that my parents went through all that political BS. Each one, even my mom in Lebanon grew up, and best thing they promoted to me while I was growing up, to me and my brother, was that, look, you believe whatever you want. Let your friends believe whatever you want. Let other people in the community you're acquaintances with believe whatever you want. But never judge, never discriminate, never not become a friend. Don't get in a fight over those. If it's not worth it, you're an Armenian. And that was the best thing. Because there's certain households I know that will be like, oh, if you're Tashnag, this is what all the Ramgavars and Chagyans did. And vice versa, everywhere. Yeah. For example, my cousin's family does that all the time, for example, right? But that's what I'm happy about, is that my parents, even though they're not born here, they came here, and the first thing they taught us, don't discriminate. You're your own people. Forget the political biases. You're in America. We're barely holding ourselves up here. Just work with it. Right. And no one's saying don't do it. You don't be a part of one organization if you believe it or don't believe it. Be in your organization, but don't push it on each other, man.
Right. Yeah, and going again based off of what you said with the whole, don't go here and all that.
You can't be friends with these people.
That was never told to me either. Like I said,
my parents dismissed all of that.
They were brought up in churches. My dad wasn't born here, but he came here when he was 8 years old.
Yeah.
So like,
same with my dad.
Right. So he, again, St. Stephen's, my mom was St. James. I think that was a big role and big reason being told, like, don't not go here.
Yeah, of course.
And, but I did mostly go to St. James. And like, and again, like I said, I see it there sometimes.
Yeah,
but
of course.
But going to, the other one, it's like, I had to learn that on my own.
Yeah.
I didn't have anyone to tell me that, because I think there was hope that wouldn't be the case.
Yeah.
Getting the looks and being treated like that a little bit and whatnot. Like, and they know who and like, again, I'm not trying to attack. Like, I'm really not. No. Like, it's just like, it's like the disappointment in me, like I'm speaking with right now. Like, my grandparents over where you light the candles.
Yeah.
In St. Stephen's.
Yeah, they donated that.
My name is on, like, not my name, my family name is on there.
But like, you don't feel comfortable.
But then you get treated like shit when you go there.
A little bit, yeah.
You
So
don't
it's
feel
like not treated like shit. It's just like
No.
I'm aware. I'm
You-
an aware
you-
person. Like
you
I
are
know
made
what I'm
to,
getting
you are made to feel uncomfortable.
Yeah. So you know
It
what
happens
I'm saying?
everywhere. It happens vice versa,
and
too.
It's just upsetting.
Let's
you
not
know? It's a
dismiss
little
that.
upsetting. It's a little bit, and that's like the last. That's kind of like the last generation's like unfortunate way of setting us up for. They set us up for it. Is basically what I'm trying to get at. Like they kind of put everyone in this position by teaching their kids and everything like that, and letting us see the way it was like that. But what I have noticed, the good side of it, not to just be all gloomy and everything, it's been a little different. Like from you're right. It's been way different. Like the people our age, the kids our age, ever since we were like teenagers, I'd say like
everyone's sick of it.
It's
more connected, bro.
Right. There's always a few where it's like
an outcast type of deal, but
So
no, and there's still work that needs to be done, but like there's never not work that needs to be done. But
everyone's
like,
starting to go to
we've
each other's
definitely-
events.
everyone's being integrated. It doesn't matter anymore.
Everyone's going to each other's events. Everyone's hanging out together. Like it's because it was bad.
Yeah, it was
from
very
what
bad.
I understood.
It was very bad.
Right. So, and that's not what we need. It really isn't.
literally the
That's
last
something
thing.
we're barely standing by ourselves. We're a targeted community
Right.
or nation, and on top of it, we're splitting ourselves up within ourselves, which is always a problem.
Honestly, and like again, like this, you can correct me if you think I'm wrong or whatnot, and everything like that. It's just. And maybe it sounds a little insensitive, maybe it doesn't, like, but that might be like, that division might be part of the reason why it's taken 106 years. Honestly.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Look, one thing.
Not the major reason, obviously.
No.
But like,
But it's
it didn't
definitely a
help.
factor. Oh yeah.
Listen to this, right? I'm doing an 80th anniversary thing for my Catholic church, so I'm writing up history and stuff. It was funny. We had an older lady. She belongs to St. Stephen's. She turns around. We're talking about one of the priests that did service there, and he died a while back. She goes and turns around and tells me that this is the first priest I've seen in my life. Obviously, it's the Armenian Catholic Church, but she goes, we found different political affiliated Armenians. One of the only places back in the day where they'd be able to sit down next to each other in the church pews and go to coffee hour and still talk normally. But then once they got out of there, it'd be butting heads. Right. But it was interesting for me.
Right. It's just, again, not to make it political, you never really want to do that, but like, we've all had our differences with specific people.
Of course.
And that's just going to happen. That's like being human, but like to make it as personal as it has gotten in history and recent history, it's not necessary at all. And going back to U.S. politics with like this whole subject, it's just like we just had a president where it was the first ever. I'm talking about Trump. It was the first ever like moment in history since this happened, since the genocide happened, where it made it to the president to sign on his desk.
Yeah, and he didn't sign.
And he met
signed
with Erdogan himself.
Yeah.
Brought him in
Yeah.
and met with him. Next thing you know, nope. We're going from that to, again, God willing, it actually happens.
Money talks. That's
Biden. Yeah, I mean, but if Biden can do it, that's a huge turnaround. And, again, what does it really do? Like we've said,
Nothing.
It does help, but there's a lot more work to be done still.
just the check mark on the bucket list that we acknowledge
It's just
history.
finally
it's a
we're
huge
not-
moment.
Yeah.
It's just
huge,
finally
major.
we're not crazy.
Right.
And we're marked out in history.
Yeah,
officially.
it's
here.
It's one of the biggest moments since the first person got killed in cold blood to begin the genocide.
Exactly.
It might be the biggest one for the
Yeah,
U.S.
pretty
to
much.
recognize it. Again, it was really late, but it needs to be done.
Better late than never.
Yeah, and if we weren't in a pandemic and this actually happens, I can only imagine the parties that would be thrown. Oh my God, can you imagine?
Oh, my Lanta.
Oh, the streets of Watertown and everything. We've seen
Flags,
it. We've seen it when more basic things have
Mini
happened.
LA, LA cars driven down the streets. We finally do.
We're obviously in a pandemic now, so that stinks. But hey, what are you gonna do? I mean, I really do appreciate like everyone that has come out though and like shown support. Like you risk their lives during this pandemic to really come out and do this. Like, and that goes to show how important it is.
Even doing the protests in the fall.
Right, the protests in the fall, and even now, like,
donating.
obviously, last year was tough in April because that was like the biggest like time of COVID where like everyone was really locked in. You literally couldn't do anything, so that was tough. But
Also, whoever's watching, non-Armenian or Armenian, make sure you're there this Saturday.
Yeah. Armenian Heritage
sure.
Park.
Armenian Heritage
If you
Park.
can.
State
Oh,
House.
not
Boston
the State House.
Common,
Boston
Common.
6 p.m.
March.
Oh, yeah, that's on
March.
Yeah, that's the beginning.
To
But
the
yeah,
park.
you want to talk about the fall at all? You want to wrap
We
that
don't
up?
have
Wrap
to.
it-
No.
You want to wrap it up? With
No,
you don't
just
want to
leave
talk
that.
about it?
You want to talk about that? That's a whole other podcast episode.
Yeah.
I think so. All right, I get it. It's just like we said. If it wasn't for that,
It boils down to you gaslight us about killing us 106 years ago, and then you decide to openly pretty much try to invade and kill us again, and then say that we're the aggressors and we're doing X, Y, and Z, but we're going to kill you guys anyways, whether you like it or not. And then we're going to just throw a bunch of ISIS fighters into the mix and then say we didn't do shit.
Yeah. And, just to wrap it up, what that does tell me, it's just, maybe I'm overshooting here a little bit, but like, if the genocide happened now, what would the world do?
Nothing.
That's what
Pretty much.
that's what
Nothing.
happened in the fall. That's
Yeah,
what that
nothing.
tells me. Because the world still pretty much stayed pretty silent.
Yeah, because we're not trending on TikTok. We are not big enough economically. We are, as I like to put it, excuse my French, a lot of Armenian people are going to get mad at me, but we are a shit stain on the geopolitical map, basically. We do nothing positive or big enough for America or the UK or any other country that's a world power, China, whoever, to really care whether we stay or we go. It doesn't matter to them at all.
Right. And that's happened to other peoples.
Of course.
Yeah, it's like we mentioned Kurds. Armenians have just been really strong to not let that happen to them. It's a testament to our strength, honestly.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for coming. I really appreciate it.
Anytime.
I really
Thank
wanted
you.
to get this done before Saturday, and I'll see you guys there. Thank you all for watching. It was a really long one. So I don't know how long people stayed throughout this, but I really hope you did. And I hope to have you guys on soon. Maybe we can talk about Artsakh and everything another time. But
Hopefully more positive stuff.
right. Yeah. Maybe next time a more positive light. But thank you all for watching. I'll see you next time.